We all have a yearning for love, but relationships can be confusing and complicated. Dr. Tammi Balashevsky says it all starts from within. It starts with a journey to center. Here's your host for Journey to Center on Empower Radio, Dr. Tammi Balashevsky.
Hello, you beautiful people. So happy to be spending some time with you here today on Journey to Center. You know, we all have poignant and powerful moments in our lives that affect us forever. I'm sure if you review your life right now, you could pinpoint some of them for yourself. And sometimes those transformational moments are not the grace-filled, easy ones, but the challenging and painful ones. Something I personally believe is there are lessons, blessings, and incredible opportunities in our most difficult life experiences. Here's a beautiful quote from James Affey. God brings men into deep waters not to drown them, but to cleanse them. And it's often in those deep waters we access courage we did not know we had and embody a strength beyond what we realized in less trying times. The truest truth is we all have priceless gifts and resources buried in our heart and gold in our soul. This is the wonderful subject that my expert today is going to be talking about, Charlene Costanzo. Here is a quote from her latest book, TouchTones, Story for Living the 12 Gifts. No matter who we are, no matter what we face, we have powerful gifts within us that can help heal, enrich, and empower every area of our lives. Her new book is a collection of stories that can inspire you to tap into your inner gifts, even when, and maybe especially when, fear, hurt, anger, or doubt has derailed you. So are you ready to tap into your gifts and go to the next level in your life? Do you desire to experience greater enrichment and empowerment? I know I do, so I'm very excited about having this conscious conversation with Charlene. Charlene Costanzo is an award-winning and best-selling author, workshop facilitator, wife, mother of 2 adult children, and grandmother of twins. She holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy and a master's degree in spiritual psychology. She has written several books, including The 12 Gifts of Birth, The 12 Gifts for Healing, The 12 Gifts in Marriage, and The 13th Gift. The 12 Gift series of fables began in 1987 when Charlene wrote The 12 Gifts of Birth as a life message for her own daughters. 12 years later, she published the book, traveled in an RV to 48 states, and discussed its messages in schools, shelters, prisons, churches, and hospitals. Hello, Charlene. I'm so happy to be hanging out with you here today.
Oh, hi, Tammy. Me too. I love that quote. I've got to get that one about being in deep waters. I haven't heard that. And I love quotes are touchstones for us also.
I think so, too. I think quotes and stories have a way of bypassing the intellectual mind and go straight to the heart.
Oh, or wisdom. Like something just goes, I know that.
Yes, like a moment of recognition or relatedness or connection. And that is something I really, really love about your latest book. I know you've written other novels, but your touchstones, the 12 stories for living the stories for living the 12 gifts, are just these quick stories that you could read 1 or 2 before you go to sleep at night and just inspire you and touch your heart in a way that just goes straight to the heart of the matter.
Oh, thank you, Tammy. Yeah, I like long books too. I like epics, but I guess I love all kinds of story. But I love those little chicken soup for the soul type. You know, that it's they're brief, and yet we feel so nourished, uplifted, kind of healed by just reading a short story. And because that aha happens in our heart and our soul, and our body feels a little bit better too when we're uplifted.
I know. I think it takes care of us on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, and lines us up spiritually. And that can help us in so many ways. When we're lined up spiritually, I think life works with much greater grace and ease. You know, that's the journey to center.
Right. And well, I'll tell you, I have to return again and again and again. If I was someone, I have to tell you, Tammy, I think this is true for all of us, but sometimes when I listen to people on radio or on TV and they write these books, I think, wow, they must have it all together. It looks like they do. And but I will tell you, I use these stories, and I'm always looking for new ones precisely because I need them. You know, again, sort of lose my sight. It's kind of like, I wear glasses. And every morning I wake up, open my eyes, and I can really see quite well. But in order to really see clearly, sharply, I put my glasses on. And I find that by using, quotes, prayers, stories, it's kind of like putting glasses on, and I see life how I want to live it more clearly.
That's so true. And even if we can see well, things happen. That's something I love about your stories. It's like the challenges can be blessings.
A thought popped into my mind as you were doing the introduction, and since it did that, and I believe that we should pay attention. I write quite a few of my stories in the chapter of wisdom are about listening to when we get these little nudges, we hear a voice, we're driving along and something on a billboard jumps out at us, kind of like, pay attention. All those times to pay attention, I feel that's the wisdom in us is speaking to us in subtle ways. But as you were talking, I thought about Jacob's ladder and Jacob in the Bible arguing or wrestling with an angel until he got the blessing. And I was thinking about how, for myself very often, and there are still situations in my life that I have not really gotten the full meaning. I think we all, in looking for touchstones, when we look at the times we face struggle and we see how we had a triumph, we can go, yes, I see how I tapped in there, to strength and how I use wisdom or courage. And maybe I had kind of angelic help in some way. But I don't know about you, but I still have a few things in my life that I'm still like, I don't fully, I feel like I didn't yet get the blessing of that. And I think,
yes, like it hasn't quite turned into that diamond.
Right. There's still something there. But so I love that. That's a biblical touchstone for me, a scriptural one, because I think, and I'll say sometimes, okay, angel, I'm still willing to work with this one, work with me here so I get the meaning of this one. Is there something still triggering me? Any of those things. Oh, and if I can jump right into one of my stories.
Please.
In the book, that reminds me, one thing that gives me so much hope and encouragement is my mom. Quite a few stories in the book are about my mom. And one is when she was near the end of her life, when she was dealing with leukemia, and she got to the point when she realized she was not going to get better. And when she came to terms with that, and she started to pray every day and ask, she couldn't really do anything anymore. And she said, well, God, what do you want me to learn today? And I could tell she was listening, thinking, she was very reflective. But then several times she said, it's all falling into place. And she would move her hands in a way like she was putting a puzzle together. And I got the sense that a lot of the things in her life that up until then she had not yet. My mother was peaceful, loving, beautiful, but I got the sense there were still some things that maybe she thought, why did it turn out that way? Or, those things. And it just seemed to all fall into place for her. Like she was seeing it. She didn't share the stories with me, but I could see on her face and in her experience. So that's one of my touchstones for hope and trusting in what is unfolding always, even though we may not see why at the end of the day or tomorrow or even next year. But I think even things that really seem troubling or why did it turn out that way? And I have plenty of stories that I can see, I'm so glad it turned out that way. I can see it. But for those that I can't, I think of my mom and near the end of her life saying, kind of like, I see it. I see it all.
I love that. I mean, that is a prayer I often utter. Okay, God, I'm confused, but I know you see a bigger picture than I have access to right now. So I'm just going to relax and trust you. And I think in a way it's a way that I can release my resistance, because I think when we're in our resistance and our struggle is what causes us pain and keeps us in that space. So I just choose to set it down and have a faith in a higher order, if you will. Because I know on some level, this is going to make sense. From this higher altitude, everything makes sense. But when we're in these human bodies on this side of the veil, we don't always have access to it.
No. And I know that to be true. I'm with you on that, in my head and in my heart a lot of the time. but not always. My
Sure,
consciousness
absolutely.
isn't always there. So for the times that I'm still, I don't know, just at down here on the ground, not having that perspective of flying in an airplane and having higher altitude, I'm in the thick of things and I kind of can't see my way out. That's where the stories help, and the affirmations, the prayers. But I particularly find, and I think that's why parables are so powerful, because with stories, we have that aha. And I think I love to hear other people's stories, and I think it's really important that we collect our own as well, because they're really going to be powerful for us when we can say, okay, I may not be feeling strong right now, but look at that time back then. Look what I did. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. We need to remember.
I think that's so true. We've talked about this before, and I think it's so important, so powerful just to acknowledge ourselves, to turn around and look at what we've done right or how far we've come, because we can get really overwhelmed looking forward at how far we have to go. But just like running a marathon, if you can just kind of take a moment and say, I've come a long ways. I did really well. To be able to just give ourselves that acknowledgement and acknowledge those gifts that are within us.
Yes, every time they've shown up, we can say, and then it helps us to remember for when we need them again, to remember to tap into them because they are there. I think eventually we do, but I think we'll get to them sooner the more that we use them, just like with anything. The more we use something with a conscious awareness, the more we're just going to go to them quickly. And they're going to be flowing more readily. And I think it's still early in the year. People are still thinking about their goals, resolutions. And I think sometimes, as you said, we're very forward-thinking. And sometimes when we're thinking, okay, well, what are the things, what do I want to be different this year, better? We sometimes first look at, well, where there is the lack, or what's wrong, or what don't we like. And I think it's really important to also look back and say, well, what did we do? What are some of the great things we did this past year? And what is working in my life? And let's build on that.
I love that, Charlene. Instead of focusing on what we don't have and what we don't like, be able to just take that moment and acknowledge what we do have, what we do like, what we have done right. And I think that really helps us start to ascend, start to kind of spiral up instead of spiraling down,
Well, for one thing, another thing that it does is change the energy so we're not in a place of fear.
Yes. Move up towards love. Yes.
Yeah, right. At least, I find I first go from that feeling of scary, shaky, some icky kind of feeling, tightness in my chest and throat. And then it's even having the intention to let that go. And as I think, okay, what gift would best serve me now? Even if I'm just using a word as a touchstone before a story, I find it just something starts to soften, and then maybe I don't shoot right into love and optimism, but I feel at least that trust in what is unfolding, an ease, a hopefulness.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Just being able to relax into that place of faith. And it is inside of us. That space of love is inside of us. And we think we want something outside of us to make us feel safe, make us feel good, make us feel loved. But anything we really want is really within. And I love that is your teaching, your message. We have all those gifts inside of ourselves.
And the asking, I was just thinking how, Tammi, it's not only the big things or things we want to change in relationship or finance. It's, throughout the day, practicing it with little things. For example, I have one here. Now, unfortunately, I didn't stay upset too long, but just a little while ago, I dropped my cell phone into the bathtub. Well, for a few moments, I really let it, I resisted. I got all tightened up and mad at myself. But I found that, I stopped and said, okay, it happened. But I fished it out quickly, and I put it in a bowl of rice. I heard that helps to draw the water out. I hope it will. But I found that, okay, even if it doesn't work and I have to get a new one, is it going to help me now to stay in a place of anger, frustration, and, how much is it going to cost, or any of that? But how wonderful it is to practice, to reach in and give myself some compassion. Say, Charlene, it's okay. It was an accident. So many of us kind of can beat ourselves up in little ways over, big things and little things. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's so true. I mean, it's clumsy being human, and we can beat ourselves up instead of have compassion,
Yeah. And sometimes my point with that was sometimes I feel that I'll notice with big things because I think, okay, now I really need to call on those gifts, But sometimes the little things, like I also was I'm in a little bit of a hurry and I was cooking something, I burned it. I did a few klutzy things today. And again, just maybe if we practice it more and more with the small stuff, what's that book? Don't sweat the small stuff, practice our calling upon our compassion and all of our gifts in the little things. It'll make the big things easier too.
And I think you bring up a really good point here, Charlene. It's like when the big things happen, we know to call on our deeper reserves, if you will. But those little things we can stumble on those.
Yeah, and kind of forget that, okay,
Yes.
This is, in fact, I have some friends who think that prayer, you only pray when it's big stuff. Have you ever heard anybody say that?
That is kind of funny. I know. Marianne Williamson says that it's not that we ask God for too much; we ask for too little.
For too little, yeah.
Every day,
well,
we need to stay in constant communication.
But I've heard
so
people.
Funny.
I know it should be constant. I think to aim to just sort of be in the dance in a loving embrace in God's arms all the time. Why not just some of the time?
Gosh, that feels good when you say it. I want that.
Oh, me too. Well, it's I love to talk like this because then it reinforces it in me, and I think we need it all the time, just like we need food, we need sleep, we need spiritual reinforcement.
Yes, and that's what I love about Empower Radio. It's like anytime you turn it on, it's going to be something that can probably support you. A little nugget of wisdom, a little bit of sustenance for your soul, and that is the place I want to reside. That's the place I want to live.
And it will, if I've sort of, my consciousness has kind of gotten, I don't know, like drifted down, I'm sluggish, I'm sort of less awake, I feel more awake then.
Isn't that true? I mean, I struggled with chronic fatigue for many years, so what you're saying is very literal for me. It's like, and it can be hard to wake up, but it's life isn't so much fun if we stay asleep. So I love having these conversations. I love reading your books. I was surprised to hear you've written so many, and so many of your books are out there, and I think influencing and affecting the world in a really beautiful, grace-filled, sweet way. And I admire and respect that so much. You've been so devoted to your process and bringing more kindness into the world. So I really want to commend you for that.
Thank you. And in the very first book and the first story was something that came out of a time of kind of confusion and pain. My first book, The 12 Gifts of Birth, which is only 500 words, it can be read in 5 minutes, but it's richly illustrated with photography and art, and it's still the bestseller. It's won 7 awards, and it sold 5 times as many. It sells like 5 to 1 to my other books. It really does well. And maybe because of the way it came, I wrote it for my own children, as you said in the introduction, when they were teenagers. But the experience I had, where it came from in terms of kind of a pain, was I had a wake-up experience in my kitchen when my daughters were in high school, and it was in the afternoon. They weren't home from school yet. I was just putting dishes away, not really thinking about anything, and all of a sudden I had this flash of, oh my goodness, how quickly the time went by. They were 16 and 17 years old then, and it's like I had a real wake-up, shake-up, like not near-death experience, but it really was a whole different kind of, like I had a partial life review. And I saw the years pass quickly, and my daughters sometimes say, Mommy, could we do this? And at times I half, paid attention. And anyway, I said, have I been a good mom? And I realized it was yes, and I did the best I could at the time, but I knew more then, and I knew that unconditional love was the most important thing I could give them, more than giving them great teaching experiences and preparing them for college, but loving. And I knew it, I felt it so profoundly. I thought, well, how can I tell them now? What can I, I was looking in the past, and I started forward thinking, but I was thinking, well, before they they graduate from high school and go to college, I have to give them something like a beautiful poem and a statue, a work of art, something. And I didn't find anything. And I had a dream, actually, a few weeks later with this story, which tells them it was what I wish I had been saying to them from the time that they were born, and kind of really showing that to them. If I may just read the heart of that message, it opens with a little fairy tale, which I won't read now, but essentially the message is that to tell every child that you are born with these gifts. Everyone is not just the royal children, like in the fairy tales, that the fairy godmothers brought royal gifts to the royal prince and princess. Every child is born. And the message is, at the wondrous moment you were born, as you took your first breath, a great celebration was held in the heavens, and 12 magnificent gifts were granted to you. The first gift is strength. May you remember to call upon it whenever you need it. The second gift is beauty. May your deeds reflect its depth. The third gift is courage. May you speak and act with confidence, and use courage to follow your own path. The fourth gift is compassion. May you be gentle with yourself and others. May you forgive those who hurt you and yourself when you make mistakes. And it goes on to tell about your 12 gifts.
And I love that. And to know that we all have them. That we each and every one of us have these gifts. And maybe some of them are closer to the surface and perhaps others are a little more latent. But we all have access to all of them.
Yeah, and I especially, I love the way it came to me. I really didn't think this, it did not come through my head. It came through my heart, through my experience, through something of loving. It's such an act of love because I wanted to give something to my daughters, and then I published it because I want all children somehow to hear things like this. But I love the mayous, the may you use your gifts in this way and that way, and the little guiding things like talent. The seventh gift is talent. May you discover your own special abilities and contribute them toward a better world. I just want every child, and every child of all ages, every adult know, yes, you do have talent. I've heard so many people say, I don't have talent, because they think it means athletics, academics, or artistic ability. And we all have this
more. Yes.
Talent, the mix of who we are, our interests, our special abilities, our dreams, our calling, that's our talent. And we're all meant to do something with it so that we feel fulfilled and happy, and we enrich the world also.
So beautiful. Charlene, I couldn't agree with you more. Something I say, because I teach workshops and I talk about being creative and being talented. And when people argue with me, it just came forward. We're all aspects of the creator, of creative intelligence. Therefore, each and every one of us is creative. We are born from that. We are that. And not to fight against it, because then I think we're in our ego.
Yeah.
You're saying you're different than everyone.
And yet, I know so many people, so many children now still continue to not get this message. So it is so important that just that it gets out there to children. Well, that was one reason why my husband and I moved into a motorhome and traveled around the lower 48 states, and then we flew to Alaska because it was already a long trip after a year in the whole country, but and I visited schools, shelters, hospitals, prisons, reading that message. But I wanted to tell you, in Alaska, it was the only time I had this experience. A little girl, it's one of the stories in the book too, was talking about talent, and I would ask the kids to tell me about some of your special abilities. What are you good at? What do you like to do? And they would, and usually they're already so programmed that it was about what grades, athletics and some performance, art, dancing. And but anyway, it was there that one little girl said, I don't have any talent. I don't have any talent at this Boys and Girls Club. I hadn't heard that, the whole year. And she argued, and she yelled, I don't have any talent. And I said, why do you say that? And she said, because my mom says I'm good for nothing, and she knows. My mom is smart. She got that message early,
That's a sad story.
I'm sorry to tell that, and yet I think um, it's stories like that, and it goes on. It gets better, though. When we started to talk about what do you like to do, to asking everyone more about what they like to do, my mission in that class, in all classes, was really to expand the notion of talent. So I asked what do kids like to do? And then they would say, oh, well, I like to help my mom cook, and I like to take my dog for a walk, and I like to plant flowers, and I'm good at taking care of little kids. And she said, she likes to take care of her cat. And then she and I said, that's one of your talents. That's one of your special abilities. And I just I love seeing, especially the faces of children, where they have an aha and think, oh, talent's something bigger. So if I don't get straight A's, and if I'm not, if I may be a little klutzy, I'm not great I'm the last one picked on the sports team, and I don't have a great singing voice or whatever, I do have talent.
Yes, that's so sweet. All right, Charlene, we are going to go to a quick break here. When we come back, Charlene is going to share with us how we can cultivate our own powerful collection of touchstones to enrich our lives on all levels. So get a pen and a piece of paper. This is going to be really good stuff. So we'll be right back with Charlene Costanzo.
You're listening to Empower Radio. Now back to Journey to Center with Dr. Tammi Baliszewski.
Hello, my beautiful friends. I'm so honored to be connecting with you here today on Journey to Center. We are spending some quality time with Charlene Costanzo. She's an author, an inspirational speaker, and a modern-day shaman. Charlene, I'm so happy to be with you.
Oh, me too, Tammy.
So I want to talk about touchstones. What is a touchstone from your perspective?
Originally, touchstones about 2,500 years ago were literal physical stones that carried a mark of authentic gold on them, and people would carry them around. So when they did trading and someone offered a little nugget or something of gold, they would take it to make sure that it was real gold, make a streak next to the authentic one, and by matching them, they could tell if it was true gold or not, if it was valuable. Well, the word has come to mean anything that really helps us see what is valuable, authentic, true, really, and helps us build wealth. And so what are touchstone stories and touchstones for us, really, I think, are things that help us to see what's truly authentic, real, and most valuable in us, our spiritual wealth. And things that help us to do that can be, really high-quality music, film, stories, everything that reflects back to us the highest qualities of love, beauty, courage, compassion, hope, joy, anything that, like the gold just sparkles for us. And I think that especially powerful are stories that contain that and show us those qualities. And they can be the stories of others and the stories of, our own experiences. And then I think carrying them, as people would carry one stone around to be able to do that, but kind of carrying in our minds and our hearts touchstones that when we need, maybe, we go out in the day and to help us make choices, is this is this a valuable experience? Is this going to be a valuable choice or not? We can kind of refer to those stories and remember to use compassion, remember to use hope, remember to use, what's really valuable in us.
I think that's wonderful. So I know that having a collection of personal touchstones is so valuable and so powerful. So how do you think we can start cultivating our own collection?
The very first step is just deciding, having the intention, and thinking of oneself as kind of an explorer. Life is a journey, and so we're going to be on the lookout for these stories, having the willingness to have them, to see them. And then I think it helps to be ready to sort of tune in and cultivate a pay attention kind of watchfulness within ourselves, because when we ask the question, the wisdom, which is one of the gifts in us, is definitely going to give us the answer. So it's going to be providing clues for us, exactly what we're looking for. So that's the kind of preparation work. And then I think one way is to ask others, ask our friends and say, tell me what you think are what do you admire in me? Is there a time that, now, I don't know if some people would be uncomfortable with that, but I think, we certainly should be able to ask our good friends, our loved ones, to reflect some of the things that they see, times that we really did something that they, they respected, they appreciated. For example, I do want to give a story. One of the stories in the book is about a man who really didn't see courage in himself until he was 60, and he was talking about really he thought of himself not as someone who had courage. And a friend pointed out to him, just said, what about the time you told your dad you didn't want to stay in the insurance industry, because you wanted to become a hairdresser. That took courage. And when you and your wife, adopted that child, and he thought, that was a mistake. And anyway, sometimes we forget what we've done. Mm-hmm. And so asking others to reflect things that, that we've done that they admire. Mm-hmm. And then really looking at the times that we have struggled and yet we triumphed, and notice, go back and reflect on them and notice, what did it take? Notice our courage, our strength, the hope, the faith that got us through. And focus on that, of course, not the struggle, but the triumph. And also, in order to do this, I think sometimes we have to slow down, to do this. Sometimes we're in such a hurry. I know for myself, when I'm in a hurry, I'm not going to be observing as much. I'm not experiencing as much. So slowing down a bit when we're looking for these things.
That's a very good point. When you're the gerbil on the wheel running really fast, it's hard to have that quality of presence and connection with that refined energy that is spirit, that is nature, that is, around us all the time, the winks from the universe that we often miss because we're just going too fast.
And I have one way that's, I think, a fun way to remind ourselves to slow down. Because sometimes we can have good intentions. Oh, I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to start walking. I'm going to do, I'm going to fit more time for these healthy things into my life. And sometimes it doesn't happen. But something that we can do that can take just 1 minute is to do like a little 1 minute meditation, or a few minutes, is to eat something very, very slowly. And because I think slowing down now and then, sometimes just stopping and saying, when you're driving, when you're stopped at a light, instead of being, in a hurry, just breathing deeply then. So my point is to take those little moments to slow down. But eat like an almond or a little piece of chocolate or a raisin, something, and just very, very slowly. It can bring us to another place. I mean, it sounds so simple, and yet it's kind of a form of meditation to just be fully present with savoring something very simple is a way to slow down.
I love that. And you have a story in your book about that thing that I love so much. And I think it was a story about when you were struggling with, you had a diagnosis of cancer. And it was about Pavlov and playing in the mud. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, at the end of that, my journey around the country, when I was telling all these people, no matter who you are, no matter what you face, we have these gifts. Remember to call upon your gifts. Is when I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and told there was no cure. And at first I felt a lot of fear. Well, I realized I had to walk my talk and go deeper into the gifts. And also, at that time, as I was starting treatments, my doctor, my oncologist said, this is a time that calls for strength. Do what makes you strong, which was so interesting because my book says, my first one said, may remember to call upon the strength whenever you need it. I thought, there's no coincidence there, But I was thinking, okay, what makes me strong? How do I do that? And I recall that Ivan Pavlov, who lived before he's a scientist who lived before the discovery of penicillin, and he contracted a very serious infection, and he was expected to not live because there weren't drugs for that. And he sent his assistant to the river to get a bucket of warm mud. And he sat in bed and he just closed his eyes and he kind of, just worked his fingers, his hands through the mud and with his eyes closed. And what he was doing was going back to his childhood and reliving experiences when he was a young boy. And he felt so happy and peaceful. And his mom did the laundry in the river and she would tell him stories and sing. And he felt so wonderful then by going back so much within himself in that experience that it was so powerful that he returned to homeostasis and the fever broke and he got well. So from that, I thought, okay, what are the things that make me strong? And among them, it is when I was a child, I loved going to the shore and playing in the sand and in the water, and I love the smell of suntan lotion because I associated that. So I started every morning like I would use aromatherapy, which I did also, but I would smell just suntan lotion and put it on my hands and smell it, and it would bring me to a place of sort of a trusting, hopeful place of like as I was in childhood. And that and many other things, I think, really helped me to heal.
I think that's a remarkable story. As you tell it, one of the smells that brings me back to that hopeful, peaceful place is the smell of like fresh cut grass. It brings me back.
Yeah.
I'm 9 years old. I'm sitting outside, and I'm in no hurry. I'm just connected, and I'm peaceful, and I'm happy. So I think we probably all have those kinds of memories if we take a moment. What are the tactile sensations or the olfactory sensations, or what brings you back to that place of peace and joy and optimism that we all had at some point in our lives?
You make a good point. And that touchstones are not only the stories, and now in that case we're using Ivan Pavlov, and I did, and you do with fresh cut grass. You go back to a sort of a story or a sense of being a child, but to have those very things ourselves, and it may be a stone. Some people like a literal stone can be a touchstone. Having a certain flower, using aromatherapy. Smells are so powerful for us, and that can so help us to be, if we're feeling some anxiety, to be calmed, if we're feeling some depression, to be uplifted. And having a collection of touchstone stories as well as, objects or little activities, little rituals that help us to shift into a place of peace it really can help us, as it did with Ivan Pavlov. And I don't know for myself if I think the chemotherapy helped also, although I'm not really sure, what it was, because I used my imagination a lot too. I would talk to my cells, even the cancer cells. I decided I wasn't going to hate them. They were just confused, and I would continually tell them they had a choice of either sort of getting their act together and getting back into harmony with everything, or they had to leave. They were not welcome.
Play nice, or we're not going to play at all.
Exactly. Well, it helps to not be afraid of it. It really, I thought fear is not going to help at all. So I have to be playful.
No, and I think that's beautiful. That's something you really talk about and teach, to be more playful and to have that sense of wonder, childlike wonder. But I'm sure there are people that are listening, that are hanging out going, well, that all sounds well and good, but I have bills to pay and things are really kind of scary. What would you say to them?
Well, the first thing I want to say is it's not everybody's way to be playful. Some people that do what makes you strong message, that is what I would say. But it may not be to play in the mud or play in the sand or, roll on the grass or something. But we all know when you tune in, you think about yourself, think about, is it going fishing? Is it playing a certain kind of music? First, whatever we're facing, to let go of the fear first and move into a place where we feel empowered. And knowing that, be true to yourself, find that for yourself. And one thing that I do when I feel fear, I did it back when I was facing cancer, because, some mornings I'd wake up and there would be the fear again. It isn't as if, I woke up and I put it behind me, and in the course of all the months that I was dealing with that, there was never fear. Of course, it came back again. And I would go to my freezer, take an ice cube, and hold it in my hand and have that ice cube represent fear. And it seemed, an apt symbolism for fear. It just, when we feel afraid, we're like a little block of ice. We feel frozen. It feels cold. We feel like kind of locked up, tight.
Paralyzed, yes.
Paralyzed, exactly. It paralyzes us, and we can't think of solutions to a financial situation or finding a new job, anything when we feel afraid. So we want to first let the fear go. But I think first we can't just deny it or yell at it or, just hope it's going to go away. The first thing is to just acknowledge, yep, that's what I'm feeling, and kind of let it be for a moment, for a few moments. So I would hold it, and it would start to melt already in the warmth of my hand, but I'd put it in a little cup and just with the intention that let my fear melt away just as this ice is going to melt into water. Somehow that was really powerful for me, just that intention, holding it like it was okay and having the intention of letting it go. And then, of course, I did other things like with my son, smelling things and a number of things that continue to move us from the fear toward more and more upliftment. What gives us pleasure? What gives us peace?
Well, something I love about what you share, Charlene, is how you address whatever's going on in your life, be it the cancer or whatever, from so many different angles. And you say you don't know what exactly was the catalyst for the healing, but to me it sounds like you hit it from so many angles. It was this like perfect healing stew, this elixir for your soul.
Oh, thank you. I have never thought of it that way or heard anybody say it that way. And I did feel, and I didn't come at it like, oh no, I don't know what's going to work, so I have to try many things. It was from a perspective of fun and sort of trust. And, well, I had read that story so many times to thousands of people, so I think that had something to do with it. And I read that again and again to myself, those wishes, those blessings. So I would remember to go into the gifts. And I would say, okay, how? So I believe that beauty heals. I believe all these gifts can help us heal. How am I going to nourish them with myself? How am I going to tap into them every day? And sometimes
that's what I hear. Yes. You
yeah,
took
how do you do that?
Yes.
Well, and sometimes we do go in, but sometimes looking in the outer world does help us to see it because something in the outer world resonates with what's inside. I'm not looking for the outer world to fill something in me, but when I look at a beautiful tree or I look at nature, I see a bird fly, I see nature does a lot for me, or I'm watching a beautiful, film that's so uplifting. It's really something outside, and it's not that that's doing it, but like a tuning fork that is resonating and making those gifts in me hum, and I think it changes the energy within us.
I absolutely think it can. What I say is that, the world is like a mirror, and some of the images in the mirror look really beautiful and others look a little contorted, but we get to choose where we spend time looking in that mirror, and let that validate that deeper beauty of who you are. So again, I think the subconscious mind loves ceremony, and it seems to me you did so many things to take responsibility from so many angles that it ended up being the perfect healing combination for you. So I'm just very inspired by that.
Oh, thank you. And I love sharing it. I love to do workshops and write about it, talk about it, and encourage people to find one thing I've done in workshops is I spread out on a surface a lot of different objects, and we do some preparation things before it. But I have like tools that I get from the hardware store, paper clips. Anyway, just a wide variety of objects from nature and things in the home. And I ask people to just everybody gets sort of a little baggie to be their toolkit. And again, the notion is do what makes you strong. And one of the activities is what's calling to you? A playing card, a feather. In fact, one of the stories in the book is about, I don't know if you've read the one about Olana. I'll come back to that in a minute. But very often, if you one could do that in your own home. You could walk around and, look in your junk drawer, look in different places and place things out or walk around outside, go for a walk, see what calls to you, what stones, what what feathers, what objects, and then choose just a few that seem to be, I don't know, call to you, offer beauty. And then if you sit with them for a while, we'll see, because of the nature, the way our psyche works, which I can't tell you how it does this, but I know it does work, we'll realize what it stands for. Either a story will emerge, or we'll realize, what why it symbolizes a certain value, why it's important to us. That is how wisdom, again, that's how wisdom is working with us all the time. We have this inner GPS that is guiding us, and just in so many ways. And when we trust it and we listen and we say thank you, we seem to, I think, hear it better and better.
I think that's such a beautiful suggestion and exercise. I've done this when I'll just look around my environment and see the things that I love or have called to me. And I look at it as a reflection of who I am at a deeper level. But I think that's so cool, just to go around nature, your house, pick up some items that are really speaking to you, set them in front of you. And what is the story? I think that's a beautiful maybe a doorway or portal to that deeper wisdom that's in all of us. If we take the time.
A few minutes for me to, a moment to refer to the story Polliwogs for Alana, one of the stories in the book?
Absolutely. I would love to hear it. So
I was preparing for this Do What Makes You Strong workshop at the Wellness Community. Wellness Community is, they're in communities throughout the country and throughout the world for people who are facing cancer. And I was a survivor, and it was for people, facing cancer or a loved one facing cancer. And so I was gathering feathers, stickers, stones, safety pins, pennies, as I said, all kinds of objects. And, we did some other activities, and this was the first one I did, and I just really wanted it to be great. I had benefited so much myself from being, participating at the wellness community, and I wanted to go back and give something great. So the workshop was over, and I wasn't sure. I thought, I think it's good. I don't know if I was great, but it was good. And at the end of it, a woman says to me, I have got to tell you what happened. Oh, my goodness, what happened up there? So she said she was walking up to the table, and she said, all of a sudden, she heard this voice like inside saying, I wonder if she put a pollywog on the table. I heard her say this, and I thought, pollywog? And I thought, a tadpole? I was confused. And she said, no, those seeds that come from maple trees. When I was little, my sisters and I used to open them up and put them on our noses when they were fresh and sticky. Oh, helicopters, I replied, picturing how I too had played with those seeds as children. And she said, yeah, when we were little, we'd toss them up in the air and watch them spin down. And sometimes we called them whirly birds, but usually we called them polliwogs. Well, I said, how could this be? I'm thinking, I did not put any, when I collected things, I did not put any of these polliwogs or whatever whirly birds on the table. But she told me when she got up and she was picking up a little bottle of bubbles and different things, and sure enough, there on the table, she saw a little pollywog. And she put it in her bag, and she also picked up a few pine cones. And as she was going back to her seat, she was shaking her bag. She was so excited that there was a pollywog in it. She got back to her seat and saw that there were more. Well, the bottom line is they were not from maple trees, but they were the same shaped seeds that came out of the pine cones. And to her, they were polliwogs. And to her, they were an answer to a prayer. And it was reminding her, first of all, the fact that she said, I wonder if there would be polliwogs, and they were, she felt as if Spirit really heard her and was so present for her. And she was getting this guiding message to be more childlike, because she was seeing herself playing with her sisters. And she felt that was a path for her to have that approach in her healing.
That is such a beautiful story of synchronicity and just divine connection, divine support.
And for me, it was also to trust, because I was going to this event and felt that I didn't have enough stuff, and I got out and I saw pine cones on the side of the road, and I picked them up and put them in. And so I'm glad I listened. And, I also, the lesson for me was, don't worry about being great. Just show up and do your best, because God is what let God show up with the greatness.
Well, and that is one of my prayers and intentions, to become a hollow bone for spirit to work through. And sometimes we have to get out of our own way, our mind. Like, don't worry about being perfect. Just show up with that heart, that love, and that sincere intention. And, it seems inevitable that miracles will happen.
See, and I know I need stories to remind me, because I can have that theory, have the intention, but then, like, even with that, and talking about it now, because I feel I love sharing, but I will tell you very honestly, Tammi, I have to call upon courage to do radio interviews. It's not my favorite thing. I admire what you do so much. I'm more comfortable writing. So, I, as I said, I need to call upon courage, and then to remind myself, it's okay if you get a little stuck or you forget what you're saying. We're not perfect. Just show up and be present and let it be.
Yeah, I think just to show up, it's just like what you said about the story with your daughters, to have just that love, that sense of unconditional love, just to show up in our loving, I think, is the absolute most important and most powerful thing that we can do.
And give it to ourselves again and again. And just whatever is going on for us, to know that our life journey, exactly as it is beautiful and perfect, and we don't have to compare ourselves with anyone else. And as we talked about early in the show, to trust that any confusion, anything that seems just sort of not good enough, or why are things going this way? Why did that happen? I guess ask for guidance in that, so that we see the meaning, we find the blessing, bring the compassion and the love and the wisdom to it, and something will emerge that gives us an aha.
Mm-hmm. I think something else you said that is such an important piece of the puzzle is that deep listening. If we listen deeply, there's going to be wisdom there for us. But if we're running, we're not really able to do that very effectively. So the deep listening about picking up the pine cones, to be really present, to hear the wisdom within. I think it's such a wonderful guiding light and compass for our human experience.
I know that time has gone by quickly here. Our time is almost up, and I would like to mention, since we're talking about touchstones, is that on my website, charlenecostanzo.com, or the 12gifts.com, which is much easier to remember than to worry about how to spell my name, the 12gifts.com is, there are various inspirational stories and a few inspirational videos, a healing video, but it's a place to sign up for today's touchstone. And every day I send out a quote, a short quote with just a few lines after it that brings a focus to strength, beauty, courage, compassion, hope, joy, talent, imagination, reverence, wisdom, love, and faith, the gifts that are in us. I hope that some of the listeners will go there and give it a try.
Absolutely. Well, you have been a touchstone for great joy for me today, Charlene.
Oh, well, thank you. And you certainly are for me. As I said, I admire what you're doing. And the way I heard you opening the show, I saw your beauty and confidence and the joy with which you do what you're doing to share with people. And I commend you for that.
Well, I really appreciate it. I just love so much having these conscious conversations. So thank you, Charlene, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, Brent Carey, for this forum called Empower. Sean, you're an amazing producer and rock star. And to my listeners, God bless you. Thank you for connecting with us. Go to my website, Tammi B, PhD, if you would like to continue the conversation on a more personal level. In the meantime, love from our hearts to yours. Onward and upward. Bye for now.